Hi, I'm Batsheva Frankel from Overthrowing Education, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at Fresh Air at 5 or check out my website, briancarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected. Hey, PLN, Tuesday, May 24, 2022. All right, so you missed me yesterday. That's because it was Victoria Day here, and I was away with my wife and friends celebrating and enjoying the May long weekend. And so it was a fabulous long weekend. Got to get out and do some fishing. My wife and her friend got to go kayaking. So my buddy and I were catching fish, and our wives were paddling, which was super great. We had a beautiful sunny day where we were up country north of Kamloops, which was very much welcome. So much so that I actually wore shorts for the first time this year because, like Tom Schimmer said on his podcast, it's been cold and wet here this spring, and we're finally getting some relief from that. All right, so this morning as I'm out walking, I listened to episode 73 of the Tom Schimmer Show. And Tom, thanks so much for bringing us 3 fantastic segments. As I start off my week of podcast listening. You talked about negative self-talk and putting that down and stopping that behavior because it does not serve you and your community very well with negative self-talk. Yes, we have to deal with our failures. Yes, we have to deal with, shortcomings that we have, but to call ourselves out and to put ourselves down and to deny a compliment when someone gives you a compliment is not great for the person giving you the compliment, and it's less great for yourself. So take a listen to what Tom has to say about negative self-talk and change your behavior. Change it. So as we move into the middle section of Tom's podcast, he talks with Rick Jetter, who is the author of a book called, I can't remember right off the top of my head, but it's about making a difference as teachers in students' lives so that they remember those teachers. So you can look up Rick Jetter, find his book, the one about making memories and for students, and he has 9 stages and phases of, not stages, but types of ways that teachers make memories for students. And looking back in my past, there are a number of students or a number of teachers that I have memories of, and they are there for those different reasons. Going through that list, some of those jump out. I'll be right back. One more thing for May 24, 2022. Continue my thoughts on episode 73 of the Tom Schimmer Show. Tom talks about negative self-talk. He talks with Rick Jetter, the author of a book. I didn't go back and look it up yet, but it's about making memories and how we make those memories. And do we set out to be a memorable teacher? Or is that arrogant to go, I'm going to be a memory for this kid? Or honestly, deep down, going, how am I going to be a memory for these students? What difference am I going to make in their lives moving forward? And some days I feel that I am making a difference. I hear stories from past students and families that I have made a difference in their kids' lives because of my enthusiasm and creativity that I display in the classroom. And I have to be grateful for that, the things that I am talking about media design and digital citizenship is making a difference for kids. And, not to be shallow, but to be deep, because it's what I believe in, and I can share myself in the classroom, but not too much sharing. So that's a balance, right? How do we build relationships? What do we do? Are we nice? Are we exciting? Are we enthusiastic? Are we human? You know, that last characteristic of being human, I think, is absolutely essential, because our students are going to grow up to be humans, and they are humans currently, and they're little humans that they don't maybe understand the full scope of their humanity, but we need to model humanity, be in front of them, own our mistakes, and keep moving forward. You know, when changes comes and we struggle with change, to talk about those changes, but to keep moving forward, because that's what we need to do. All right, the very last bit is on Assessment Corner, and Tom brings in a co-host for the summer session now every 2 weeks, and as his co-host is Natalie, and I cannot pronounce her last name, so you're gonna have to listen to hear her last name, but she's out of Calgary. I'm wearing my UFC shirt today, and I'm a former Dino and went there for my undergrad. The last thing for May 24, 2022. Continuing my thoughts on episode 73, Assessment Corner of the Tom Schirmer podcast. He has on co-host Natalie, and Natalie and Tom are going to be bringing us assessment talk for the summer and having a 15-minute segment each show about assessment and their practice and what they have done, and just discussion around questions that we bring them. So fantastic. Natalie, I'm glad to hear your voice, and I'm looking forward to hearing your voice over the summer as I reflect on Fresh Air at 5, my podcast. So hopefully, Natalie, you'll subscribe to that and listen to what I have to say about a number of different things as I just listen to podcasts. But Tom, this past Friday, May 20th, I was privileged to attend as being part of the executive of the MyPETA PSA here in Abbotsford, in British Columbia, not Abbotsford. The spring conference that was held at Whistler at the Hilton, and that morning, in the morning session, I got to listen to assessment talk and talking about beginning changes in your assessment practice with Nina Pack-Louie, and your name came up in that conversation and her address about assessment. So I was like, hey, I know that guy. And so Tom, that is one more step on my journey to being a different kind of assessor as I understand competency-based assessment and the performance scale. So yes, just wanted to let you know that I got to talk with Nina Pack-Louie for a little bit. And other things that I did, went to Science is a Verb with John Monroe. He did a set of science demos and talking about how we can use science to intrigue and bring curiosity to our classrooms. All right, that's it for today. Have a fabulous day, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Hey, PLN. Wednesday, May 25, 2022, out for Fresh Air at 5 this morning. It's a little on the damp side, but not raining too bad, and great to get up and get refreshed for the day and the week. Today I got an opportunity to talk to students at University of the Fraser Valley. They're coming to my school to see what it's like to be an online and blended learning teacher in the space that I work in, which is super exciting. So my principal and a couple other teachers are going to get to share with the student teachers, and I'd love to see their energy and their enthusiasm for stepping into this educational field of teaching, and seeing their joy and their desire to learn. So excited about that a bit later today. Speaking about desire to learn and to dig into newness, Got Tech, the podcast, episode 112 with Eric and Nick. They bring us 10 ed tech tools and resources to check out over the summer, and things from Sway to Digio to Synth and Empatico, and there's a Celestial one where they're looking at space images in 3D, and just different Project Noah. So different ideas about learning for yourself over the summer. Great list, guys. Love it so much to see the enthusiasm you guys have for learning, and that you're sharing that and putting it on your podcast for things, saying, hey, we don't exactly know how this is going to go, but we're going to take a look at this and probably try to incorporate this into our space. For myself, my summer learning is going to be like this. I've got, we're changing from our Google district to a Microsoft district for our students' space. So learning OneDrive and all manner of Microsoft things. So I like the Sway connection there at the beginning of this episode. We're also in the transition between Moodle, our learning management system, to D2L Brightspace. And so I'm going to be teaching this summer, working on learning and being a better online teacher through this new learning management system so I can help guide my students. So the whole point is, what are you learning over the summer? What are you doing in your spare time? Just sitting around? I hope not. Go learn something. Bye. One more thing for May 25, 2022, episode 17 of No Red Pen with Tom Mullaney. He brings us Noda emoji is better than regular emoji in Google Workspace. And so, Tom, there's a new font you mentioned called Noda emoji for Google for Workspace, and that's for education and other places. So I'm going to dig into that and take a look at that. That's interesting and curious of how there is a font set that is emojis and special characters that can be used and change colors. There are things like that already, but you said this is even better. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Challenge for this guy right here, Tom, is that we're moving out of Google in my district. So yeah, so that's a big kind of not happiness for me. We're moving into Microsoft, so I got to learn some tricks. You know any tricks from Microsoft? Probably not. You're a Google guy, and this is what you do on your podcast, is do Google stuff. But I got to learn some tricks and ways of doing Microsoft for education, and how we can use that with our students to do creative and cool things like Google things can. So I'm excited about that. Excited about learning about that with Cobblestone Collective this afternoon as we have a workshop on our transition. So those of you that are out there, Google people, take a listen to Tom Mullaney and how he talks about Noda emoji, the font. And so I've got another year until we have to be out. So I might see what this looks like and play around with this because it's curious to me. And so, yes, awesome. Thanks, Tom. Have a fabulous day. Bye. Hey, APLN, May 26, 2022, out for Fresh Art 5 this afternoon, delivering papers, and I got to listen to a thought-provoking episode as Gabe Carrillo brings us episode 106 of EdTech Bites, talking about Megadesk. And what is Megadesk? Well, it's a reference back to The Office, and how on The Office, one of the guys takes another guy's desk and all this stuff and has this really big desk with all these things on it that he doesn't need. But Gabe, you brought to our attention the fact that after COVID, we have resorted to keeping our big desks with all our monitors and being in our captain's chair at the front of the room, as opposed to surveying the room and being around the room and teaching from away from our monitor and computer. I like to walk around as I teach and see what the students are doing. But you know, honestly, now that you bring it up, I sat at my desk all day in my classroom. My students are capable to do what I've asked them to do. They were doing what I've asked them to do, and I'm aware of that because I can see their progress through Google Classroom, but I didn't get up and walk around a whole lot. We had a presentation, so I didn't teach from the presentation from there, but when we got working, I was working on my project, which was the same as their project, at my computer, and not checking on how they were doing. So, you know, it can happen to the best of us, and you know, it doesn't make you a bad person. You just got to be mindful so that you're not doing that all the time and taking care of your students. And like you said, these are somebody else's kids. How would you like your kids to be treated when they're in your own classroom? All right, that's it. Have a fabulous day. I got another podcast to possibly listen to before I'm done papers. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye. The last thing for May 26, 2022, I just listened to the Cool Cat teacher talk with Jillian Du Bois out of Florida about the end of the year and how to wrap up strong and ideas that you can have and how to make learning still relevant in the last days when it doesn't seem to matter much because, well, we've accomplished everything that we need to. But we're still there for our students, and we need to be present for them so that they can continue to learn. Jillian, it's fantastic to hear you talk about the Eagles and how you watch the Eagles all year long and learn about life cycles and things like that with your students. You talked about some other things, but it was really encouraging to hear your enthusiasm here at the end of the school year. And as this airs, school's probably out for you already in Florida, but we're still going strong here up in Canada. Got about a month left to go of school, and encouraging and challenging our students here to continue learning and being their best. All right, super exciting. Oh, and the butterflies in our classroom, not my classroom, but our K-2 classroom, started hatching out of the chrysalis. So that's super exciting to see the life happen. I told my grade 9s and 10s, and they're like, whoa, we got to go see the butterflies. So they're going down to the K-2 class to see them. All right, have a good one. See you later, Vicki Davis. And thank you so much, Jillian Du Bois, for sharing on episode 783 of the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. Take care. Bye. Hey, PLN, Friday, May 27, 2022. You made it to the end of the week, and it's the end of the workday here, and I didn't get up this morning to go for a walk. It's been such a full, fast week. We had Victoria Day on Monday, back to school, and lots of teaching and good things going on at school. And then we got the big Microsoft Office 365 Google transition that we're doing from Google to Microsoft. And talking about that, talking about transition from our Moodle to D2L learning management system. So we've got big changes going on in my space, and it's been feeling heavy a bit. Also this morning, it was pouring rain at 5 a.m. and I wimped out. So I should have probably gone for a walk, would have been feeling a lot better, but I didn't. And alas, here we are. So happy Friday afternoon to you. Hope you had a fantastic week. Thanks for listening to episode 74 of Fresh Air at 5, my podcast. All right, have a fabulous weekend. Talk to you next week. Bye. As my one word for 2021 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Cold Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.